Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, Moletrap here, and this is not a StarCraft commentary video, but basically I have several different things that are not StarCraft that I wanted to talk about, and so rather than try and squeeze in a bunch of random topics into the beginning of other videos, I thought I'd just make one channel update video and just talk about a bunch of stuff at once. So, first of all, I wanted to announce the live cast. I've set a time and date for it, rather arbitrarily, but still, got to pick something, right? And I've been a little bit busy until last week, so now that I'm less busy, I've decided to pick a time and give it about 2 weeks of lead up time. So if you haven't heard, or if I didn't explain it well enough before, basically my plan is to take an old StarCraft finals and do a live quote-unquote broadcast on Twitch. And okay, so what's the point of broadcasting VODs live? Well, the point is that basically we'll be able to kind of act like it's a live cast, like we're actually watching the OSL finals from 2009 live. And the advantage of doing that as a live event is that people get to talk about the games together. You get to be in Twitch chat and, you know, talk about what's going on, and, you know, get to read each other saying like, oh my god, look at this, or oh look, he's going for a drop, and like, you know, it's kind of more hype to like be able to talk about what's going on with other people at the exact same time instead of just leaving a comment on a YouTube video. So that's one of the advantages. And the other advantage is that then I get to talk to you guys in between games as well, and we get to have a little more of a conversation about it, which isn't really possible on YouTube. So that's kind of the plan. And so my plan is to make it just like an event where, you know, we'll start off with a little pregame show, we'll get into the games, and in between games there will be a little bit of downtime where we'll have some filler material, maybe some jokes, maybe some conversation, maybe some other games or something like that, and that kind of thing. Also, I can't 100% make any promises, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have some surprise special guests that can come on in between games and say hi to everybody as well. So that should be fun to have some other blasts from the past show up and talk to you guys during the live event. So I hope you guys can make it. I've picked the time and date to be August 7th at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Pacific time, and that's going to be 5 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be 9 p.m. UTC, and that would be actually the following morning at like 7 a.m. in Australia, 9 a.m. in New Zealand. So what I'll do is I'm putting it on the screen right now, but I'm also going to give a link that if you want to click that link, it'll show you what time and date the event is in your time zone. So you can make sure you know exactly when it is for this everytimezone.com thing, which is pretty cool. So that is the live event. And by the way, the games that I'm going to be casting are the Ever OSL Finals from 2007 between Stork and Jaedong. And I'm really, really excited about that. Should be fun. Stork is one of my all-time favorite players. Jaedong, I wanted to do that partly because he is actually going into the military soon. He's just announced that recently, and so he's going to be kind of, he's pausing, maybe ending his esports career, so I want to pay a little homage to him by doing a finals that he was in as well. So just wanted to let you guys know about that. I hope I'll see everyone there on my Twitch channel. Even if you can't make the live event and you want to watch me on Twitch, go follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/moletrap, and I do a couple streams a week, and sometimes it's StarCraft stuff, and sometimes it's not, and so, but yeah, if you follow me, you can find out when I'm streaming, and hopefully I can chat with you then as well. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing I wanted to mention is just a kind of a channel update, I guess, that I am planning on doing some more some non-StarCraft games. I guess I could say some more because over the last several years I've put up a few different videos for different games and stuff. So I'm going to start doing some playthrough game videos of different games, but I think I'm going to try and do something a little bit different than normal. Instead of just playing like a fun game and then just doing a playthrough and people are like, oh look, he's killing the bad guys. I have a few games that I want to play that are more like experiences than they are games in some ways, and they'll focus around sort of meaningful feelings or topics, I guess, kind of thing. So basically, like, I'm planning on doing these videos that it wouldn't just be like to watch the gameplay, it would be to kind of like experience it with me, and kind of, so I'll be like playing the game and like experiencing what the game has to offer, but also talking a little bit about my experiences related to what is in the game. So for an example, one of the games I'm going to be playing is called, oh crap, what is it called? I forgot the name of it. The Long Dark. That's what it is. And it's a survival game where you're like surviving in the wilderness, right? So that's an interesting thing to like think on. The game isn't really about the gameplay. It's not like about fighting monsters or anything like that. It's about the concept of surviving and like what it's like and that kind of thing. So the reason why I want to do that is because I guess I might not have mentioned it. I probably didn't mention it, but I actually, a few years ago, I went on a road trip and I basically just lived in my car in the Rocky Mountains for a few months. And I was doing a lot of camping and hiking and seeing really remote places and stuff like that. And so I'm going to be like playing this survival game, but at the same time, I'm going to be talking about in the game the experience of wandering or loneliness or being lost and how my feelings about those experiences, right? So, hey, we're lost in this game, and I remember one time I was lost in the Rocky Mountains, and this is how I felt, and this is how I dealt with it. And so it'll kind of be like an exploration of the themes in the games in addition to actually just playing the games. So, and I've got a few games that are going to be dealing with different kinds of topics that I kind of want to go through and just make some videos that are about the experience. So anyway, if that sounds appealing to you, which I hope it does, I hope you'll join me for that. I think it's going to be fun. And, you know, I'll give it a try. We'll see if it'll work or not. It may be that the games are too slow and I don't have enough to say, and it may not work. And then I might just go back to playing cool games and showing you gameplay videos, and that might work too. But in the meantime, I want to try something a little bit new and different. So, okay, the third thing I want to talk about is Q&A. I asked in a video a few weeks ago if people wanted to submit questions, and I would do a Q&A video. I think 2 people, maybe 3, actually asked questions, so I didn't feel like I had enough there to do an entire independent AMA video. So I'll just address that now, a few of the questions that people have had, and like a couple other questions that people have asked in other videos. So let me just go through these. I guess these questions are kind of about stuff that I've done, so I'm going to take it kind of chronologically, I think. What got you into casting SC? What is the reason you did your first cast? So I started watching StarCraft games when I was in grad school, which was in 2007. Or maybe I started watching before that, but it was 2006-ish to 7 that I started watching the games. And I basically got into it because I found some random boxer highlight video, and I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. He can perform magic. And I actually remember when I first saw it, I thought that they were programmers, not pro gamers. Like, I misread it and I was like, oh yeah, these are programmers. This must be videos of people who have programmed the AI to do cool stuff, because there's no way that humans could pull off the crazy mechanics that are going on in this. So this must be programmed AI, and that's why these are programmers. And then later on I realized, no, they're actually pro gamers, and these are actually people that can do these crazy things. And I was so amazed, because StarCraft was a game that I played a lot in college. It took a lot of my time in college. I was in college when the game was pretty new. I started college in 1999, shows you how old I am. And so when I played StarCraft in college, it was just like a fun thing. I didn't know there was any kind of competitive scene or anything like that. And then fast forward several years, and I find in 2006-07 that there's this pro gaming scene, and I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. These people are doing so much crazy stuff with this game that I'm familiar with because I played it a lot in college, but they're taking it to such a whole different level. It's amazing. And you know, same reason why a lot of people probably get into StarCraft, because it's just really cool what people could do. And I was also just really fascinated by the culture of it, like that there was this place where you could win a bunch of money just by being really good at a game. And then as I found out more about it, I found out, okay, whoa, there's actually like big name sponsors. There's a lot of money in this. And, you know, these StarCraft players who are these nerdy kids have like fangirls fawning over them and giving them gifts. Like, it was just it turned everything on its head, right? And for me, having been a nerdy kid growing up, it was like, oh, wow, here's a place where the nerds are the kings. Like, this is my alternate reality that I wish I'd grown up in. So I was really attracted to StarCraft for that. So that's the kind of background of how I got into StarCraft, competitive StarCraft. How I got into casting it is Well, when I found competitive StarCraft, shortly thereafter, I found Klazart, who was doing some English broadcasts for the Korean games, and he was doing, you know, what we all know now that I do, and a lot of you guys probably watch Klazart as well. And Klazart was doing these games, and I was like, this is amazing. He's talking in English about these Korean games, and I didn't know very much about pro gaming or the high level scene at the time, and so it helped it make it accessible to me, and that was pretty cool. And then after, I think he'd been doing it for 4 or 5 months or something like that, Klazart took a break, and he disappeared. And there was a void there, and I was like, man, where's Klazart? And I had to track down the Korean games because I wanted to watch more StarCraft, but because I hadn't watched anything but Klazart, I think, before that. And so then I was like, oh, well, Klazart's gone. I have to find these games. I want to know what happens in the Pro League. I want to know what happens in the Star League. And so I tracked down the Korean versions, and as I was watching the Korean versions, I kind of like found myself like imagining like what Klazart would say or what I would say instead about the games, and like kind of wishing there was commentary on top of the Korean games and imagining what it would sound like. And I was like, well, let me just do it. let me actually just record it. So I mean, I might not have ever started casting if Klazart hadn't taken a break, actually, because I felt like there was a void to fill, and so I wanted to do it at the same time. And so that's how I got started, was just basically like, oh, well, hey, like no one's doing this. Like literally no one is doing this. So I should do it just to fill in, right? And that I'm pretty sure that me and Diggity were the first ones to do it after Klazart. And also Superior Wolf did some stuff back in the day too. But he didn't do like a ton of games like Klazart was doing so many at the time, and Diggity and I did a lot of games at the time, and then obviously the other guys joined soon after that too. Anyway, so that's kind of how I got into it, was just basically feeling like there was a void to fill and feeling like, why not me, and I'll try it out. And I was bad when I first started, but people still enjoyed it, but probably because there was no other options. And so I did more of it because people liked it enough, and as I did more of it, I got better and got practiced at it, and etc. So that's kind of how it took off. Anyway, what's your favorite race and player? Do you still have your Stork shirt? Any interest in so I'll take that first. So favorite race and player. I don't think I have a favorite race to watch, except I actually feel like I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for Protoss. And I think that's because when I first started watching in 06, 07, the pro scene, like Bisu was the best in the game, right? He was the king. He was the man to beat. I started watching after he had taken over the throne from Savior and had kind of overthrown Savior and was the dominant player. And you know, so when I was started watching Klazart videos, that was something that he made a big deal out of, was like, oh, Bisu is so good. And so that was kind of a big deal. That was formative for me. And then like one of the first major StarCraft finals that I remember watching, and I think I cast it at the time, but I don't remember, was Stork versus Bisu, which is Protoss versus Protoss. But like as I was getting into StarCraft, Protoss was the race, and it was before Jaedong and Flash. So like that's why I kind of feel like if there's one thing that sticks out of my heart, it's probably Protoss from the pro scene, because I feel like I'm more attracted to Bisu and Stork. Stork is one of my favorite players of all time, probably, again, partly just because he was really good and because he was the underdog in that MSL finals between Stork and Bisu, and I always root for the underdog, and so I've really liked Stork, and I felt like he could have won that finals, and I was disappointed. So yeah, Protoss, kind of that. My favorite race, though, in general, it was probably, I like playing Zerg the most. I've always been like I've played random, and I've played a lot of everything, all the different races, different times. But I think I lean towards Zerg a little bit, just because it's the most dynamic. It might be the best way of putting it. Like, I feel like it has the most potential because it's so easy to switch between different techs. You don't have to build any different production buildings, and so I think that makes it more complicated. And I think that means that, like, basically, like, if you could somehow play each race at the highest level possible ever, like if you took it to its highest extent I think Zerg would be the best race. But at the same time, I think the Zerg is the hardest race to play at a lower level in a way because of the fact that you have to be thinking so much about being dynamic between what kind of units you're making. You can't just constantly be hitting SCV and constantly be hitting Marine. You have to decide, are you going to make drones or are you going to make Zerglings? And that's the advantage and disadvantage of Zerg. And so that dynamic is really, really interesting to me. And so that's kind of why I've always leaned towards Zerg. And like back in the day when I felt like there was pressure that I had to pick one race and try and get good at it, I picked Zerg. And I played Zerg in StarCraft 2 mostly and stuff like that. So that's kind of that. Do I still have my Stork shirt? Yes. Yes, I do. It's in a box at the moment, I think, somewhere, because I've been moving around a lot the last several years, so I haven't really had a place to hang it up or anything like that. But it is kept safe in a box somewhere. I do still own it, as well as a bunch of other StarCraft swag that I have from when I first got to Korea and was going to a lot of Brood War games and stuff. Any interest in D&D? Yes, I love D&D. I've been playing that since college as well, off and on. I've done a lot of dungeon mastering over the years, primarily because most of the people I wanted to play with were not as interested in it, so I kind of was the only one that could DM with some of my friends. I've actually always, even before I played D&D, I used to do Star Trek games in chat, like Star Trek chat room role-playing games in like way back before there was graphic games to play, basically, and that involved a lot of like role-playing and just coming up with plots on the off the top of my head and stuff. So I've done that a lot, so I do a lot of DMing. But I actually just last week, this week, yeah, I guess this week, I started a new game where I'm actually going to be able to be a player in that game. And my favorite thing to do is come up with interesting concepts. I do not like min-maxing. I mean, like, min-maxing is fun enough, but I'm more interested in like coming up with fun concepts to play. So, but I do enjoy D&D a lot, and I used to have a group several years ago that I played with in person. Now it's just all online. Most of D&D I've played has been online, where we played some a little bit of Star Wars, and we played some, I think it was called Deadlands, like a sort of a steampunk type scenario type game. So I've played a few different systems. What got you to stop casting back in the day? I think it was around SC2. You had a big into the SC2 scene. So what got me to stop casting? So yeah, when I moved to Korea, so in case you guys didn't know, because actually it seems like a few people that I've seen comments on actually don't know. So if you don't know, I started casting StarCraft 2 a little bit when after it came out. And then I ended up going to Korea as a StarCraft 2 caster. And it was interesting because when StarCraft 2 beta came out, I actually couldn't get a beta key very easily. And then when I didn't have a computer to play StarCraft 2 on. And so I actually, to this day, I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit of a disappointment to me that I wasn't able to be there at that time, because like, you know, people like Husky and HD got huge in StarCraft 2 because they were the only ones doing StarCraft 2 content. And right at that moment when like there was a thirst for new StarCraft 2 content, I didn't have a computer that could play it. And so I kind of missed out on that. But at the same time, I'm really, really grateful because I was able to get into StarCraft 2. And I think partly because I wasn't as big of a name on YouTube, I think it might have made it easier for me to get a job at GOM TV. And so I was able to actually really live the dream and go to Korea and be a StarCraft 2 caster there. And so that was pretty amazing. So I kind of basically, the partial answer to why I stopped casting Brood War is because I started casting StarCraft 2 instead, and I went to Korea and I was really distracted by that. And then I got distracted from casting StarCraft 2 by casting League of Legends. And if you're unaware, I ended up moving over on GameNet and casting League of Legends from GameNet for a season or two. And that was really awesome also. And I did get to cast the only time ever that the MSL or OSL had an official English broadcast was me and Torch and Supernova Maniac, another guy that was doing translation for me a lot when I was in Korea, who was didn't work for OGN, but he was just like a fan to help me out sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, the only time that they ever did an official English broadcast for StarCraft 1 was the last OSL finals, and I got to cast it. And so that felt like a completing of a circle. And so that's actually also partly why I stopped casting Brood War, because it felt like a good ending, you know? Like, I started off as a fan, I did some crappy YouTube commentaries, I got better, I got bigger, I turned into a person that people knew, I had some drama where people didn't like me a lot back in the day, but I pushed through it, made it to Korea, and then I cast the last Brood War OSL, and that felt like a capstone. You know, it felt like, well, there's not going to be, because Brood War was over, right? And there still hasn't been as big of a Brood War tournament since then, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But yeah, so it felt like the end, like last Brood War OSL, it's done. Like, you cannot cast a bigger game than the OSL finals, and I got to cast the last OSL finals. There was nowhere left to go in Brood War, and so I was kind of like, well, yeah, I guess that's finished. That's the end of that chapter. That's the end of that book, and I should do something else. So anyway, so then when I ended up leaving Korea, and that's a whole other story about why I left Korea, but I ended up leaving Korea. I could not find any other opportunities as a caster, League of Legends or StarCraft, and so I kind of had to shift my attention. And I mentioned that I started doing Brood War in grad school, and I was in grad school to become a teacher. And I don't know if I've ever mentioned that actually before, but I was getting my teaching credential. And so when I left esports, and I was also feeling very burnt out on esports. So when I didn't get a job in esports, it was kind of like, all right, well, I just got to take a break from all this crap and all this drama and a lot of hate that I was getting when I was in Korea. Korea was a really rough time for me, actually, because I was getting a lot of negativity thrown at me from a lot of different directions. And yeah, that was a whole other story too. It was tough times. So yeah, I was kind of like, all right, well, let me just, you know, wash my hands of that and move on. And then I went back into education. I got a couple of teaching jobs and became a high school teacher for a little bit. And so yeah, that's why I got kind of out of casting. Wow, this is taking long. I thought this was going to be like a few minutes, just answer a couple quick questions, but this is taking longer than I expected. But I hope you guys are interested in all this. I guess if you aren't, you've already tuned out. So there you go. Have you thought about casting more recent tournaments that were played in SC Remastered? So I've addressed this a little bit before, but basically not like yes and no. There's so many people that are doing remastered stuff already that I felt like that was already done. I didn't have to do that. Like, there's already people that are doing that stuff. And there's people that are casting modern tournaments and that kind of thing. The Africa Star League, the ASL is already, you know, has official English broadcasters. The Africa Team League Star League doesn't have official English broadcasters, but there's already people that are doing it, you know, just on Twitch or YouTube or whatever. So I feel like that's all kind of covered. And so I thought, like, well, if I'm going to come back and do StarCraft, like, what role can I play? And I was like, well, my advantage is that I'm old school, more old school than most, I should say. And so I was like, well, what can I do? And well, let me stick to what I know. Let me go back to the old school. There's a lot of new players that have played StarCraft only in the modern era. And so maybe I can go back and do some of these older games, and that's why I've been doing this, you know, legendary games series of StarCraft casts, because I feel like that's like, okay, well, that's what I could do. And I was actually I was a high school history teacher, so being the history teacher of StarCraft felt like a good fit for me to do something different than the remastered tournaments. Now, if someone had a remastered tournament and they wanted me to cast it, I would consider it for sure. I think that'd be fun, especially since I'm running out of Vods. Like, I'm actually getting low on Brood War Vods to cast because there's no way to get them. I just happen to have a stash of them that I kept on old hard drives from like 15 years ago or whatever it was, or what was that? Yeah, so 12, 13 years ago. That's kind of my thoughts on that. I might do some other StarCraft tournaments if the opportunity comes up. And the last question in chronological order was asked with the previous one, but I'll answer it now. How are you doing? It's a great question. I'm hanging in there. You know, I think we're all having a hard time these days right now, especially like at this moment in the United States, because the United States has become the epicenter for the pandemic, and it's kind of like a lot of countries had their spike in virus stuff earlier, and now the United States is having its biggest spike. And so, you know, that's kind of stressful, but also, you know, I got laid off from my job. I've had some other stuff going on in my personal life that has made it hard. So it's been, I'll admit, it's been a little bit difficult for me. And so it's been kind of nice to have this little bit of an outlet to do some StarCraft stuff. It feels familiar. It's been really cool for me, and the positive support that people have given me as well has really made me feel good. So it's been good to have this outlet, and the fact that it's been good for other people to have me, you know, in coming back and like giving them some nostalgia and some good old feels to help them in the pandemic times is really heartwarming too. So I appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, how am I doing? Is that pretty much sums it up. Things are hard, but you know, I also am just trying to figure out how to get through it, and I do think that we're all going to get through this at some point. It's going to be a little while longer, maybe several months, maybe even a year before we get through it. But I'm just, the fact that I feel like there is an endpoint is what helps me keep going. And so I kind of just am focused on that. I just got to keep my head down until that's all over and try and do what I can to make use of the time. I'm trying to do stuff like write a novel and work on some other side projects and stuff. And so I'm just saying like, all right, well, hey, this is my training montage, right? This is the training montage time. This is the time when I have to be spending, I can't really do a lot of other stuff. So it's like, I'm just going to kind of use this time as well as I can, with, of course, you know, allowing time to just be stressed. Like, it's okay to not be spending all of your time wisely. I think when there's times of stress like this, it's necessary for your mental health to spend some time just vegging out and just trying to deal with the stress. Like, that's okay too. So I don't feel like obligated to spend every moment writing a novel or anything like that, but I'm trying to balance it between, you know, supporting myself emotionally and mentally, and also trying to push forward and make sure that I'm coming out of the pandemic times with some advancement in my life. So, wow, that was I guess that was probably a little bit more than you wanted to know when you said, how are you doing? But there you go. I've ended up rambling a lot on this video, so maybe I needed this outlet to just ramble about stuff that I wanted to talk about. You know, it's like sometimes there are people when you could tell that they like don't talk to people a lot because you're like, oh hi, and they're like, oh well, the other day I was, and they're like, some people will just like, you talk to them for like a second and they just talk to you for like half an hour about stuff. And usually when that happens, I recognize it about 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, this person just needs to talk. And I just like, all right, I'll be that for them. I'll just listen, and you just let them ramble for a while. Right. So maybe that's what I needed to do. And you all, maybe possibly a couple hundred people are the subjects that are just like, okay, Moltrap, sure. Sure. I'm listening. So if you made it this far through the video, thanks for listening, I guess. I hope you've gotten something out of it, and I hope you've found some interesting things to think about in it. Which leads me to the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this video. Last thing that like I wanted to mention that again didn't like warrant its own video exactly, and that is this. It's a little bit heavy, so I'm sorry about that. But I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Me Too movement has been a big thing in the esports scene lately. If you're not like spending your time on Twitter or Reddit or whatever, you probably haven't noticed. So I'll just let you know that like, so the Me Too movement is the movement where a lot of women have been speaking up and saying like, hey, me too, I've also experienced like men behaving inappropriately towards me, or sometimes doing worse than just inappropriate behavior and actually committing violence, usually of a sexual nature, that kind of thing. So if you don't know, like that was like a couple years ago or something like that, it kind of came up around a lot of like actresses were saying that me too in Hollywood, I've also experienced these things, you know, that like Harvey Weinstein got really torn apart because of it. And like, he was one of the focal points of it, but there was a lot of other people that were like exposed as being like really kind of terrible people, and a lot of sexism going on in built in the culture of Hollywood. And so the last like month, it's hit esports, and there's been a lot of casters and players and streamers and other people associated with esports who are mostly women, but some men who have been talking about how they've experienced sexism and discrimination and violence and stuff like that at esports events or as part of esports organizations. And so it's kind of like been this big thing. And I mean, that's the point of Me Too, is that if one person says it, another person says, well, yeah, me too, it also happened. And so we've seen a lot of stories coming out and recently. So this is actually a topic that's really important to me. It's something that I've kind of studied a lot, and well, I don't know if studied is the right word, but I've tried to learn a lot about it. It's something that I've had a lot of people close to me that have been affected by, and it's something I've seen a little bit in esports myself. I mean, I haven't experienced sexism, but like I've seen it, other people experiencing it as well, and it's just like, you know, always made me feel bad that it happens. And so I saw a lot of people responding to these stories on Twitter and Reddit and places, kind of saying like really dumb things that just were very ignorant, where people just obviously didn't understand what these women were experiencing. And you know, there's some men as well, obviously, but the women experience something very different. Sexism against women is built into our culture, so men don't have to deal with a lot of the different aspects of it. So anyway, point being, I felt like there's a lot of people that were just saying these like really ignorant and hurtful things, and I felt like I had to do something about it, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go around and argue with every single one of these idiots. And so I shouldn't call them idiots, because I do feel like a lot of them are just ignorant and just don't understand, and that's why they're saying these hurtful things. They don't even understand that they're being hurtful or ignorant about it. So what I did is I made a video, and it took a while for me to actually figure out what I wanted to say and how to say it and record it and everything. But I made a video where I was basically talking about addressing some of the main things that I felt people were missing, that if they understood more, they might have a better understanding of how to respond to these things and how to understand the stories that were coming out. And I published it on YouTube, but I put it as unlisted because I didn't know if, you know, random StarCraft people would want to have that pop up in their feed, because it's not really a game thing. And so I put it as unlisted, and I posted it on Twitter, and no one watched it. So that felt a little bit weird, but that's okay. Like, I felt like at least I tried to do something about it. And I don't really have, I mean, it's kind of like on YouTube. I used to have a lot of people that would watch my videos, but it's been several years, so no one does anymore. Well, same thing on Twitter. Most of the people that are following me on Twitter are old accounts that aren't active. So a lot of people, not very many people saw the video that I made. But anyway, I just wanted to mention it to you guys, my followers, that in case you are interested, I'll put a link to it. I think I'll put a card to it right now on YouTube, if I remember, and I'll put a link to it in the video description though, as well, if you want to watch it later, in case you're interested. And it's something that, like, if you've been following any of this stuff, or you're kind of like curious about like, okay, well, what are people going through and how can I better understand what they're going through, then that video might be a good place for you to start. Because I have learned a lot about it. And so, like, you know, I've been there. I've been to a place where I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on. What are these people talking about? But I've learned about it. So I tried to make a video that was like kind of share my thoughts on it. And so I didn't make this long of an introduction to explain all that, because I wanted it to be something that was short and sweet, so that if someone did just find it on Twitter, they could just be like, oh, here's a 30-second intro telling me what I'm about to watch. So anyway, so I thought I'd give you guys more of an explanation though, since you guys are my fans, and so you're not just like randomly finding out on Twitter or whatever. So anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much it then. Those are the kind of things that I wanted to mention, and this has turned into a really long video, hasn't it? This is kind of crazy. Did not expect it to go this long, so sorry for rambling, I guess. But again, you know, I kind of apologize for rambling, but I also just figured that, like, you know, when the game ends or when people get bored and they don't really care anymore, they can always just turn the video off. So like, it's not that big of a deal, I guess. So if you've made it to the end of the video though, congratulations. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you listening to me ramble. It makes me feel good that people care about what I have to say sometimes. I guess I'll end on a little bit of recommendation that, you know, if you want more Brood War action, well, first of all, there's thousands of videos that me and Diggity and Clazart and Cholera and Rise and Nuke and other people have put up over the years that you can go watch. But there's actually people that are doing it nowadays as well. There's some people that are still doing Brood War casting for Remastered and other stuff. And so you can find them around YouTube. I don't know exactly who all is doing it. I haven't really been looking that hard, but I do know that on Twitch there's people that are casting as well. Tasteless and Artosis have actually been streaming Brood War. Some of the other old Brood War gamers that I have met over the years, like I know there's more than this, but like G5 and Future are two of the old, like some top US players in Brood War from like the mid 2000s, or not mid 2000, but like mid like 2005 to 10 kind of thing. So they do some streaming as well. So you check them out. Basically, just if you go to the Brood War, the StarCraft channel on Twitch, you can find good people playing there, and some bad people, but bad people are fun to watch as well sometimes. So, and if you want to watch bad people playing StarCraft, I'll give a shout out to my Twitch one more time as well. Since I do play some StarCraft on there occasionally, and I'm not very good at it, especially since I haven't really played a lot in the last several years. Although I have played a little bit here and there. I've never gone an entire year without playing StarCraft, because I'd always dig it up again and play like a 2v6 comps with Diggity for old time's sake, like every several months or something like that over the years. And we've been doing some more of that lately too. So anyway, so that's my closing thought is, if you want more StarCraft, it's out there. Go and find it either on YouTube or on Twitch, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And yeah, so I'll close out there, and hopefully I'll see you guys at the live event. And thanks very much for watching. I appreciate it, and hope everyone is doing well. Hope you all are hanging in there during these trying times, and that everyone's staying safe, staying healthy, and taking care of your mental health as well. And yeah, so I'll see you next time, and I'm gonna go close out this video and try and go do some more MSL games, so I can hopefully go get those up in the next day or so. All right, thanks for watching. Take care.